Hey, greetings, friends. Jacque Howard here, and welcome to Trenton 365 Midweek. I'm broadcasting from Hub 13 West Front Street in historic downtown Trenton, New Jersey. Hub 13 is a Ward 20 friendly office building, but it's also a members club as well. You can find out more information, including signing up for a membership on the website, hub-13.com, hub-13.com. So today's first segment that I wanted to talk about was pertaining to mental fitness, mental health, and some of the techniques that I've used in the past to help me, during my troubles and my struggles, and then also using the techniques that I've been given and taught and shown, and other techniques that folks who I know who are also, working on their mental health and mental fitness have shown. So I'm going to give you some of those ideas and thoughts. But first thing to think about is, please find yourself a licensed and professional therapist, someone who you're comfortable with, sharing, very particular, detailed information about your life. I believe that, and again, I'm speaking from my personal experience. I'm not a therapist, but from my personal experience is that it's provided me an opportunity to look at my life differently, but also to come to a place of comfortability with who I am, the situations I've been in, how I've reacted, the things I've done that I'm happy about and pleased with, but also coming to a place where the things I think I didn't do such a good job, those things I'm able to rectify those as well. So with that being said, I want to encourage you all to, there are so many resources available. Many of them are, not a big cost. And if you have some sort of insurance, you can offset those costs. But I really just want to encourage folks, find a therapist. You might not find the first one to be everything you need. And as you change and as you evolve and as you grow, you may need a different therapist. I've talked to therapists who are, same gender I have, different gender, et cetera, same ethnicity, different ethnicity. And at different times, they've all helped me. And with that help, they've been able to at least give me something, or at least I was ready to receive something that would help me in the long term with my mental health and mental fitness. So I know it works. And so I want to encourage folks, who I have some influence in sharing my experiences with, for you all to consider it. Getting yourself a licensed therapist, someone, that you're comfortable with. And you may not be comfortable with them for a long time, or you may be comfortable with them. It's really about a relationship. And the main focus is for folks to take that step. And that leads us to the idea of mental fitness. So mental fitness was a term that was, really shared to me by Kimmy Carlos many years ago, when she was on the Trenton 365 show talking about, her area of expertise. So shout out to Kimmy Carlos. So when Kimmy was explaining to me, her perspective on therapy, et cetera, the term mental fitness came up. And I'm someone who pays attention to, what I eat and exercise and all those different things. So immediately it resonated with me. It just made sense. Like, okay, yeah, so we know mental health. Well, if it's a health component, then there should be a fitness component to that. So at that time, I started, researching and learning more about the idea of mental fitness and what that includes. And it's literally just that. It's not that you're only concerned about your mental well-being when things are one way or the other, whether positive or not so positive. But mental fitness is something about overall well-being, a wholeness, WH wholeness in your life, a holistic approach to things. And when she had mentioned that to me on the interview, I should follow up with her. It's been a few years. When she mentioned that to me, it's something just opened up in my mind. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, why should we only go to therapists when something's bad? It's kind of like, for those people who are faith, who only, pray to God or anything like that when, um, they need something. And we all have been through that situation where we've had someone in our life who only needed or came to us when they needed something. So there was always a difficulty with that. So the mental fitness standpoint just resonated with me to say, hey, look, man, I should be thinking about my mental space at all times because it's critical to how I move, how I operate, how I can communicate, the way I look at myself, the respect that I have for myself, as well as the respect that I demand and expect others to give me. So being in this space of knowing who I am, and I'm in this space of growing and developing and getting better, is part of the fitness. I liken it to someone who is in athletics. No one would immediately pick up a new sport, so to speak, or hobby and think that they're going to be good or successful. Anyone who's ever tried to play a guitar or a musical instrument, that it takes a lot of time. It takes preparation. The dexterity in your fingers needs to happen before you can actually hit certain, chords, etc. And it's the same thing with our mental fitness and mental well-being. There's a lot of things that we've got to reconcile in our brains. And oftentimes even in our bodies, if there's a physical manifestation of, something in our life that is triggering our mental fitness and well-being. While going through therapy, it reminded me of some of the things when I was a child, like a baby, not baby, but, in school, and some of the racial hatred that I received at elementary school. Some of the names, the jokes, and those things. And now that I'm older, to be able to see the power and the influence that those peers, my children my age at the time, their parents had, which must have edified that attitude and the arrogance of racism, of classism. And, as I'm going back through life and starting to peel those things, peel the onion back and, just start answering questions, for myself, it's a lot when you start saying that, there's a trauma from when I was in like, first, second grade and something happened and I just forgot about it, or at least I thought I forgot about it. So therapy has helped me in those spaces. So I'm sure for some of you all, it will help you as well. I mentioned also the physical traumas of, things as well. Like now that I'm, in my mid 50s, 55, I remember when I was, I guess, I don't know, 14 or 15, I was assaulted. And I didn't think about what that trauma was until I started getting older and saying, why is this an issue with my leg? Like, I've done all these different things and peeling back, I realized it was because of trauma that happened when I was like 15 years old. My body didn't forget about it. And I think now that I'm getting older and there is some signs of deterioration, just, metaphysically, just physically rather, we as humans, our bodies, change. So with that, I'm starting to notice different aches and pains and starting to identify with, what happened, if anything happened that caused, this, particular, injury to come back up. And not only just from the assault, but also I was in a bad skiing accident. I was in a bad skiing accident where, I thought I was going to be in really, really bad shape. But I still have issues with my back, because of that, in my lower body. And I think about also the sciatic nerve issue I had, which plagued me for a long time, and how that, flares up from time to time. And bringing back in the memories of, what it was like to experience that for the first time, that shooting pain, and how I was able to maneuver through life. But now looking at it from the perspective of now that I'm, much older, that maneuvering through life may be more difficult, which leads me to questions about ADA compliancy and, how you get around, how you move. So if a trauma I had when I was, in my 20s, which, may have caused me, some difficulty in moving around, and may cause me more difficulty later in life with moving around. Well, then it makes sense for me to start thinking ahead and saying, hey, what would it be like if there were no handicap parking spaces around? What about if I didn't drive and I had to use public transportation or some other form of transportation? What would that look like, getting around? And then maybe not getting around so much, not being so mobile or free to roam, so to speak. And what would that do to my mental health and mental fitness? So as I'm peeling these things back with the help of a professional therapist, as I'm peeling these things back about, myself and my life and my surroundings and my community, not just for me to identify what the issue, the problem is, but let's start thinking about some solutions. And, I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to do that. And I've got a network of people that have an expertise that I don't have, who can best advise me or give me ideas and suggestions. And then I can do what I do with, being an ambassador, being a connector, et cetera. So back to this all loops around to the mental health and mental fitness and so forth. And that's that you may be going through something today that is way, way, way older than today. And if you're a person, no, let me stop there. Generationally, we have traumas and we have energies that we transfer to our offspring. There are, that happens in a house. If grandpa served in one of the wars and has battle stories, there's probably some impact that grandpa has in how he does or does not communicate. That trauma could have done something to an early relationship with grandma. So grandma and grandpa may have some challenges from decades ago. But if there wasn't clear, open conversation, then there's a chance that, grandma and grandpa may have some feelings and things that are going on that they never dealt with, that maybe they got from their grandparents. Now, if we start thinking back further and further, we start saying, hey, what has been a major impact on our society? And I'm going to say it's racism, poverty and racism, but it's gotten to the point where I think a lot of them are hand in hand. So if we start tracing back the mental fitness and the mental well-being and saying, hey, I got some issues, and okay, well, my grandparents had some issues and their grandparents probably had some issues, and you start tracing this back and you start realizing that, hey, some of this may be systemic. And you have to start thinking stronger about how do we make changes. Now, when we talk about systemic things being passed on by generations, or the house that you grew up in, or the community or environment you grew up in, just like playing a sport, if you do it enough, you develop a skill set. You're able to do things, one hand, two hand, whatever. I say that to say that the traumas that we have experienced, that we do experience generationally and systemically, that's for all human beings. It's not just one group of people. It's not just people who look like me or darker than me. It's also for those who are lighter than me. The people who don't have any melanin or low levels of melanin in their body. If it's a systemic trauma or behavior, that can be passed down through generations, then it's happening and able to happen to all human beings. Now stay with me, because I was painting this large winding creek of a picture, because what I've come to realize is that for me, racism is one of the biggest problems with mental health and mental well-being and mental fitness. We have large, well, at this point, anyone who's considered a person of color, that number is larger than people who are not considered people of color here in the US. So let's just stick with our country. If we can say systemically, let's just say African Americans have faced systemic trauma because of the plight that we've gone through over the hundreds of years here, then what about the people who were doing it? If there's a group of people who've been oppressed, and we know that that causes long-term issues and so forth, and that has done something to us as a country and as society, what about the people who were doing the harm? Is there something in them that was passed down generationally to behave a certain way, to have a certain ideology and or belief? Well, it would only make sense because we're all humans, right? So let's think about that. While we're trying to fix or correct our personal lives and our local communities, et cetera, and we're constantly pointing out what the problem is, or the thought of what the problem is, that now we've gotten to a point where it's considered a group of people, a certain group of people. It's those people. They're the issue and the problem that we have. Okay. Who's caused that problem? Who's been the person that has caused the trauma to that other person or that other group? So as we move forward, it behooves us to consider those types of things, not just, putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, so to speak, but thinking about some of the other solutions, like, hey, was there something that took place on a much larger scale that is now causing these issues and problems locally, in our neighborhoods, in our houses, in our communities? Until we get to that space, I think that we're just going to keep running around, putting out, little fires when, the forest is burning. I want to also touch on folks who are, during this holiday season, who have loved ones who are no longer with us in whatever capacity, or maybe you're just not talking, or any of those things, whatever the circumstances. Please know that you are enough, regardless of what anyone else says, anyone else has done or is doing to you. You're enough. We as human beings, we just have issues, and we're all trying to figure it out. No one's got it figured out, and we are all trying, and we are all trying to get better. So when we're thinking about how we're acting and reacting because of what we're feeling, what we've gone through, let's just give some consideration, or more consideration, to that other person. What is going on in their lives? Probably we'll never know. And I think that if we all take a perspective of, we're all in this together, we're all human beings. The teachings of some group being more superior than the other is bogus at the very best. And that given certain situations and circumstances, all people have the ability to make wise decisions, and some not so wise. And the circumstances that follow those choices is what we're focusing on. And I believe that's part of the issue. I was mentioning, folks who do not, who are missing loved ones during this time of the year, during the holidays. My family is hurting right now from several fronts. From my married family, the Burts, Rogers, Johnson, to the Howards, the Wilsons, the Tuckers, the Williamses. Having a big family is awesome because we get a chance to experience so much from so many different perspectives. We recognize life in the diversity it has. But at the same time, because it's so many people, when someone's not here anymore, there's more of them. So if you got a big family and probably gonna be going to a lot of funerals, that's just the way the numbers work. So to my family, to my friends, to my networks who have told me stuff on the side, I know what's going on in your heart and what's going on in mine, and thank you for all that and the support. Please be encouraged. Seek some professional assistance if that's what you need, or if there's someone who's close to you who helps you to feel better, helps you to feel warm, to feel loved. Take that step and just reach out to them and have a conversation. And I also encourage you to ask the Spirit to really guide you in this, to guide you in choices you made, decisions you made, how you feel about others, etc. Because we can get through this. And I personally want to say that I'm a living example of that. So with that being said, I want to tell you all, have a great holiday season if it is possible for you to do that. And if not, no, that's okay too. That's okay too. But consider bigger picture and that you are important, you are loved, you have a lot to offer to a lot of people, which is why you're here. You weren't worth anything. I mean, who knows? And in closing, if you really need to, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm pretty open and public with my stuff. 609-433-0489. You can hit me up on any of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, YouTube. And if you're someone who's a landline person, you can call over to the radio station, WIMG 1300, 609-695-1300. You can leave a message there if that's more comfortable for you. Again, I'm not a professional, but I know a lot of people. And they have told me that they are ready and willing to do things. The fields are ripe. And they're ready for harvest. It's up to us to do the harvesting. There's no one is coming to do it for us. Remember, friends, in closing, it's always about justice, peace, and humility.